Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
You ready?
I'm always ready.
Alrighty. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentleman History Month. I am Sid Part 2, joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
And this is, of course, History Month, the month in which we discuss the contributions that geeky gentlemen have made to history, but that have been ignored by a biased educational system, except not at all. Alfie, who are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about popular video game and international Oscar-winning film star, Prince of Persia. I forget his actual name.
I don't think the prince ever gets a name in the games. In the movie, they call him Dasad, something like that. But in the games, he's always just called the prince or my love. He's never given an actual name, if my memory serves.
Okay, then. Well, I guess that makes things easier when you've got a title. But other than that, I guess it's interesting that because you chose this one, and I'm familiar with the character, specifically mainly the video game franchise. I don't know how much we want to go into the movies as we go, but maybe we'll touch on it a bit. I can definitely understand why you chose this for History Month, but specifically, what makes you interested to talk about the character himself?
I don't know, the prince was just one of those characters that always kind of latched onto me, and History Month is one of those things where it gets really kind of difficult sometimes to create good polls. So I was just sitting there kind of racking my brain of characters that could work, and Prince of Persia popped in my head. So this was more a pull out of desperation than any I've got a really strong take on the character. By the way, in the movie they call him Dastan, almost like Dustin, but Mid-Eastified.
The dusts of time.
Yeah, dust of time. I don't know, I don't really have a necessarily deep reason to talk about him or anything like that. I don't have, I think, hot takes on the Prince of Persia, but I don't know, it's a character that I like. It's one of those things that I like the game franchise. Big surprise, Ian likes an acclaimed PS2 platformer. Whoa!
I think maybe my experience with liking the Prince of Persia has always been those games have always, particularly Sands of Time, it was always one of those things where the story itself never really captured my attention. It was always more a conceit for enjoying the core gameplay and the mechanics of the thing itself. But I always do like characters who, when you play in that historical setting with fantasy elements, you get to do a lot of different, not just commentary on that time period, but being able to tell different stories through gameplay of that character. So obviously just being of royal descent, I think is interesting to put you in that specific control.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The thing that always sold me on Prince of Persia was the very first trailer I ever saw for it, where it was live action. It was a guy just running, and he was on running on a skyscraper as it was being built, and he just tries to jump between these two girders or whatever, and he misses the jump. And then he just rewinds and goes back a few steps, and then he jumps again and makes it this time. And then the title comes up, and then gameplay footage is shown, and it's Prince of Persia, buy it now. I'm oh, that's so cool. It was something that always sold me on the gameplay. But I don't know, as I got invested in the character and the world, it's one of those things that just kind of stuck with me, and I did really like it. It's one of those games like I got it for either Christmas or my birthday, and you know, my neighbor friends would come over and we played it like every day of winter break until we could beat it, and it was that like real fun of like that challenge of, you know, because it's got pretty good puzzling and stuff built in with platforming. It was that challenge of having to figure out how to do all these things. And then like the second game came out and we're like, oh no, during the Duhakasha or whatever the fuck the thing's called levels, you've got to have the lights off, it's got to be dark and scary. It's just one of those things. It got pretty silly for that reason. And then by the time you get to the third game, you got like the Dark Prince, which is just the coolest shit ever. It's just one of those things. The world building, tied really well with the gameplay dynamics, and I don't know. I got really into the character's journey. I thought the prince had kind of this, admittedly incredibly edgy, kind of character arc to him that always seemed really cool, and I always really enjoyed it for that reason.
Yeah, and like I think that was something that should be said. Edge inherently doesn't have to be bad. I think the Prince of Persia series is probably at its best when it's more aware of that, and in the sense where you can still have fun with it. You can have characters in like a similar way to, I feel like, the original God of War has a very super hardcore story, and it's treated very seriously, but it's also treated with some levity because of the situations, and you can tell the developers are still having fun with the thing. Prince of Persia gives that sense to me. Specifically, character-wise, I think it's a really, really cool and really interesting dynamic to have a headstrong character given the power to undo all his mistakes. Like, that's some good shit right there.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that stuck with me for that reason. Interestingly, as much as I love the third game, it's been a long time since I've played it. Probably like 2006, 2007 since I've played through that game again. And I honestly can't remember how that one ends, which is weird for me because I remember the ending of the first one and I remember both endings of the second. So it's I don't know, it's interesting that my favorite game of the franchise I'm having a hard time placing in my head right now. Huh.
Mainly because of just when you get stuff like that, you get such a connection to it early on, and it normally isn't for endings or anything. It's the experience, it's like the emotions of the journey kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was the thing, to get a little more into the character itself. That was like the game that started getting really self-aware, to your point that you were making just a minute ago. Started getting really self-aware and really like introspective, because one of the running gags through the first two games was the prince was constantly talking to himself. That's just how they did, you know, character narration and exposition and stuff. And their gags where it was, oh, I've got to stop talking to myself all the time. And you'd have companion characters throughout, and they'd always be like, who are you talking to? No one! But then...
That's gold.
Yeah, but then by the time you got to the third game, and he's got a dark personality, you're literally talking to your evil self the whole game, and it's really fun for that reason. Absolutely adore it for that reason. That and the Evil Prince. Oh god, it's the most edgy, like Darth Maul level cool design. Oh, I love it. There's a graphic novel that came out as promotion for the movie in 2010. They released like a tie-in comic series, and I didn't know about it until years after the movie came out. But I found the trade at a Half Price Books, and I was like, oh, this could maybe be interesting, and I started thumbing through it, and I just happened to land on a page that shows the prince looking in the mirror, and there was the Dark Prince. I was like, buying it just on that alone. and I really shouldn't have, because that was just there as a reference. It has nothing to do with the story. He just looks in the mirror at one point and sees the Dark Prince, and that was it. Nothing else happens. I was so hella disappointed because it was drawn by Bernard Chang, who's doing Batman Beyond a little while ago, and he does really good art too. It was so cool. But yeah, the Dark Prince's design is something I always really like. The Prince has like some really fucking killer costume design and stuff as he goes through his three main games. The first one, the dark blues, they all kind of build together well, and it looks really good. The second one's where it starts getting really edgy with the Godsmack music, and he's got like the red and the long emo hair and stuff. Yeah, and then the third one's like this, I don't know, it kind of balances it out. He's clearly still been through some shit, but it's getting better. And so he's got like, this kind of dirty white, but it's like ripped edges and stuff. I don't know, it's really, he gets cool character design, but the Dark Prince is still my absolute favorite.
And I can understand that as well. I think that's one of the strengths of the series in general, is not just character design, but like world design, and really getting to play in the setting that's unique to the game series. But for the Prince himself, I think it's always cool whenever characters get to have their inner flaws embodied as something you can beat up.
Yep.
Especially in video games, like you get Dark Link, you get like Metal Sonic, and then like Shadow. Even Mario has a couple. There's always the counterpart for the player that Prince of Persia managed to actually turn into gameplay. So I actually really do appreciate having that. Character-wise, though, I think it's interesting because throughout the game series, we are kind of having some character. It's like almost like I don't know the best comparison to it, but someone who has a tendency to almost make things worse by helping. Mm-hmm. And then eventually culminating that in, okay, now he has to finally deal with his biggest enemy, himself. Is actually kind of a very subtle, very interesting bit of acknowledgement for an overall character journey that I do appreciate. And what I do really, really want to emphasize is, as badass as the designs are, I think how they merge into everything you see on him normally relates to gameplay. He's rarely got an item with him that you can't use.
Yeah, because you can, like, of course, grab stuff as you go, and like that was one of the gameplay dynamics that I thought was really cool in the second game. Is like you pick up weapons and you could use them for a time until they break, and that's pretty standard fare now. But that was relatively unique for a adventure game platformer at the time.
Normally just be infinite slashes.
Yeah, and so like that was a really cool dynamic that they introduced, and to your point about like things introduced, the Prince in Two Thrones has this like whip blade just stuck in his arm, and it's like this debilitating injury that's really affecting him the whole game. But when you go Dark Prince, you can use it as like a rope, as a chain, and as a weapon. It's like a really cool dynamic thing that's added to the complexity of the gameplay, and it's really good utilization of design. It's one of those things that you can tell was like kind of come up with by committee and baked together, and they found ways to make it play and work really well and also look really cool.
There's nothing more you can add to that specifically. Yeah. Like, it's always hard to tell with video games, especially the ones that get really popular after the first one. Mm-hmm. What is committee generated that they made work, or what is just an original idea? Like, I'd be very curious to see if the whole idea of the Dark Prince was just it's very popular mid-2000s to have dark alter egos.
Yeah, possibly. I'm just flipping through Google Images looking for cool things, and I found both a cosplay of the Dark Prince that's pretty good and a Lego fig of the Dark Prince, and I just wanted to acknowledge
there
that.
you go.
But no, I think you're very right on that. It was just like a popular thing, but also I think it's like interesting because as you were kind of alluding to earlier, the prince is really kind of his own worst enemy. Everything that goes wrong in the first game happens because of him. The first game he's like, oh, I've got to prove myself. I've got to go steal the precious dagger and hourglass and yada yada. And then it's because of him that the bad guy gets a hold of those things and the whole situation goes to hell. The second game, he's literally being chased by death. And he's like, it's led him to this island and he's got to deal with everything going on, and he's being chased by death because he cheated it. So like everything bad that's happening to him in that game is happening because of him. And then you get to the third game and it's probably the one that's the least his fault, because he kind of ends up in a like war-torn area and stuff. But ultimately everything that's happening in that game is like the results of his actions in a number of ways, and so it really makes sense to kind of pit him against himself. Because I'm really struggling to remember. I feel like there's a boss fight where you fight the Dark Prince as like a trippy, Star Wars cave kind of situation.
I know for sure the ending of it is him filing over Comet, and I think by necessity that would have to be a boss fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Boss fight, Dark Prince.
You just get Purple Rain turns up.
Yeah, right. It seems like it is. It definitely looks like, yeah, because it's like all dreamscapey and stuff. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna call it like, it's not the final boss. It's one of the final things. I'll stake my reputation on that one. Sure, why not?
The Prince of Persia fan base will annihilate you for this.
Right? I'll get canceled by that massive Prince of Persia fan base that hasn't gotten a game in over 10 years, question mark?
Well, if Metroid's still thriving.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Like, I know they tried rebooting it in 2008, and that game was fucking boring. The funny thing about Prince of Persia is, of course, you get it's actually much older than I think a lot of people realize, because, of course, there was a Nintendo SNES Prince of Persia game. It's all 60...
Yeah, I think there's the whole trilogy of that.
Yeah.
Very much the same vein as, like, everyone thinks Metal Gear Solid is the first Metal Gear game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era of games is a reboot of the franchise that was like incredibly successful. And then they tried again, like I said, in 2008. And I believe it failed pretty miserably, but yet they released the movie just 2 years later in 2010. And then the movie got a game of the movie.
And really, that was the highlight of this.
Yeah, that was really the best thing, because we all know how good movie games are.
And then movie games based on video game movies. That's like that's like you're 2 layers deep. Right.
Okay, Prince of Persia. Like there were a couple things. There's some DS stuff, and it looks like maybe a mobile game or two. But the main trilogy from the mid-2000s is like where it's at with Prince of Persia. And I don't know, it is a little sad that the franchise kind of petered out, because I guess it's just like a one gimmick character. But I thought the platforming was unique enough, and it seemed like a lot of things after Prince of Persia kind of adapted the gameplay as far as platformers went. I mean, like, Nathan Drake doesn't do a ton of running on walls, but just about everything else in the Uncharted franchise is stuff you did as the prince.
Mm-hmm. And even as modern as stuff like the new Star Wars game, its wall running is like 1-to-1 Prince of Persia.
Yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Like a lot of God of War, it just Prince of Persia changed platforming and made it a lot more like, look, you can do platforming and have it be like believable and serious storytelling as kind of the core of your game. And yeah, God of War did a lot of stuff like that. It seemed to really kind of take off. So I guess just the ability to undo wasn't a strong enough sticker for people, but I thought the stories would have made it work. You know, I guess it would have required another reboot, and if the 2008 one just didn't do it, which it certainly did not, I guess that's all you're left with is you can't really do much more beyond that then.
I think the problem as well is I'm just looking at who owns the IP. And the moment I found out who owns the IP, I know exactly why there's no more Prince of Persia games, Ian.
Ubisoft?
Yeah, because you know what? They've been making Prince of Persia games this whole time.
Okay.
Assassin's Creed is just Prince of Persia.
Oh no, that's very true. That is very true. Yeah, that's true. It's got all the, but it doesn't have the rewind. I don't know.
I know, but it's basically at this point you get some glitches and feels like it rewinding sometimes.
Fair.
I would legitimately believe that's the main reason is every developer at Ubisoft, everyone working at Ubisoft who would want to do a Prince of Persia idea is like, oh no, we've got a big major franchise that gets us countless money always where we can do those ideas.
That's probably true.
If it was another developer that didn't have such a similar big IP with more name brand now than Prince of Persia does, I think we would have definitely seen a revival by now. Because again, failed video game reboots are nothing new, right? Like sometimes you do have to work some things out twice even, and all you need is that one good success to propel a whole new series. Doesn't matter how many bad video games have been before it. Like look how many bad Batman video games there were before the Arkham series.
I was so sure you were about to say Sonic. It was going to be hilarious.
Never betray my blue boy.
Okay. I think you're right. I don't know. The Prince is one of those things where I guess I don't really have much of an argument of what makes the character super compelling. I think it's one of those things, a lot of video game characters, you identify with them a lot because you spend so much time with them. It's a very personal thing. You invest a lot of yourself in them, as opposed to how deep they are on their own. You know?
Mm-hmm. And that's not even a negative, because I would definitely say, like, Link's one of the most enduring and popular Dragon Ball.
Link in Dragon Ball, when?
I mean, have you seen that Toriyama Link art? It looks so cute. It's like I wanted a game with that aesthetic. But that video game character is literally named Link, meant to be a link between you and the player, you and the game, and it doesn't ever speak. But the world around it, the presentation of said character, gives it some life. And I think Prince of Persia obviously isn't to that extent where it never gets to speak a word, but the prince does get to, when you put yourself in those shoes, the more a video game character can let you invest yourself in the conflict, I think that is a strength. And I think maybe that's a unique difference between video games as a medium compared to movies or comic books or anything. Because sometimes it is nicer to have a protagonist that doesn't do anything so you can imagine yourself in those situations.
Yeah, and I think the prince is like a little more developed as an independent character outside of Link, or as compared to Link, rather.
Oh, of course, yes. It was just the most premium example I could give.
No, that's totally fair. I think he's got a little more going for him than that, just on his own as a character. But he is he is pretty much like the character who things revolve a lot around him, as opposed to him being like particularly intriguing on his own. And that's something I think that was probably the biggest trouble with trying to adapt him into film, and tell stories with him. Like I said, the Prince of Persia movie graphic novel that I own, it's a bunch of short stories, and it's pretty much all short stories about the other OC characters introduced for the movie. There is one story about the prince that is like fully about him and not just like he ran through the room in this scene. And it's about how he and his brothers were supposed to go take over this kingdom for their father or whatever. And his ship kind of got blown off course, and he ended up on an island with a bunch of like magical bullshit that he had to deal with. It's very, very Indiana Jones, you know? Where it's like, and no one believes him about what happened, and so he's like, and I kind of like that idea that he's always kind of just unluckily getting involved in this mystical bullshit that he wants nothing to do with. That's a fun idea, but you kind of need to be able to continue your series for that to be a gag that works, you know? And adapting him to film, I mean, how long has it been since you saw the Prince of Persia live action film?
I already said at the start of this, I've never seen it.
Oh, you've never seen it. Okay. I mean, it's not good. Like any live action video game movie, it's definitely not good. I don't think it's like atrocious. I don't think it's painful to watch video game movie. It's nothing on like the level of the Mario movie or anything like that. But at the same time, you just got a lot of fucking baggage. You got like Jake Gyllenhaal there, and I mean, he's doing his best, but it is a whitewashed role, which is certainly disappointing. It's kind of weird when Ben Kingsley's there and Jake Gyllenhaal's like, Uncle.
Especially when it's in the name.
Right? Yeah. And then like the other two guys are clearly actually Middle Eastern, I think, and I don't know, it's weird. So like there's that baggage, and then there's the baggage of like he rewinds time all of 3 times throughout the movie. Which is pretty disappointing. So I don't know. It takes very little from the first game, which probably has the most in-depth story you could have done, which is also disappointing. I don't know. There's a lot going on in that movie that's just not good. But then there's other parts that's like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. Like when they do the whole rewinding time thing, it's pretty freaking sweet. There's a really cool scene where they're camping out and they get attacked by vipers in the middle of the night, and he presses the dagger right when a snake is about to jump on his, like, bite him in the face, and you just get like this close up of like the venom shooting out of the fangs and everything. It's pretty cool. There's some good visuals of it.
And that's probably the main reason why I am a little disappointed that we might never get to see it on like more modern hardware, is the visual stuff you could do with going back in time with the kind of power we're at now in the consoles and on PC would be incredible.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Yeah. Oh well.
Sorry to break your heart some more there.
Yeah, I don't know. There's stuff like that you just kind of have to deal with.
Would you prefer if they did, hypothetical, if they did say, our PS5 launch title, Prince of Persia, would you prefer if it was just a reboot or set in the same world as like a sequel or a prequel or in the original canon of those 3 games from the PS2 era, not like the original canon?
Part of me says yes. I think that'd be cool. I'm kind of gotten to the point where I realize, yeah, I'm not going to play it. I'm not gonna buy another console. I bought a Switch because I got super hyped for Mario Maker 2, and then I found out I really, really fucking suck at Mario. And so I kind of regretted that purchase. I mean, it's still fun. It's still nice for, like, you know, party games and stuff. But I was like, oh, this was a mistake. So I know I'm not going to buy a console just for, you know, one game or anything. But at the same time, I definitely watch someone play it. I'd definitely be interested in it. As far as whether I'd want it to be a reboot, I feel like his story is over enough that you'd have a really hard time, especially after all this time, going back to that continuity. And I think it does make the most sense to just do a reboot. I think the problem becomes, how do you do a reboot without just retreading, you know? How do you do a reboot but also do something new, do a new story with the same premise, you know? That's where I think things become complicated. Maybe a remaster.
Oh, that could be cool. Yeah, 100%, like they did with Crash Bandicoot and Spyro.
Yeah.
Just like completely redo everything.
Mm-hmm. That could maybe be interesting. I don't know. How about you? What do you want from the Prince of Persia franchise?
I don't know. I'm kind of feeling Old Man Prince.
Old Man Prince. Okay.
I feel like it could be a cool idea. King of Persia.
Oh, there you go. That's how you reboot it. All right. Give me your pitch. What is the King of Persia's villain?
Fuck it. I don't know, man. I wasn't going there. I just had to kill a title. That should be enough.
You fucking like walk into Ubisoft's office. You're like,
you know, alright, I know. Fucking the main Al-Jin from Sonic and the Secret Rings.
I guess you could do that. I don't think there's any genie appearances, and it's got like that Middle Eastern vibe kind of thing. You could probably like make a genie villain.
Yeah, why not?
I guess, I mean, maybe that's what you do. Maybe you borrow more from like actual Middle Eastern mythologies. That could probably work out. I could see.
And then get more. Okay, so the time travel gimmick, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Wait till all these other mythological items exist, and now you can do like space warping and all of that shit, and like everything's like connected, and that's how you can justify new gameplay styles.
That's a cool idea. I'd play it. Not.
No, you wouldn't. You just said you would. You just said you're not gonna buy a new console no matter how dope I make this game.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I don't know. Do stores still do that thing where you can like borrow a console for a couple of days? Like, is that a thing still?
I don't think so.
You're British. Your country's just perpetually
depressed. We had
depressed.
Blockbuster too.
Yeah, but I have Family Video still.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure they do that. I think that's a thing. Like, call that a good 72%.
Fair enough then.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to let Ian borrow your console when the inevitable King of Persia game comes out, please drop your post office in the below.
No, like, see, Alfie, what you gotta do is you gotta, like, get on a plane, go all the way to Ubisoft, knock on the door, or not knock on it, kick it down, walk into the boardroom, like, alright, listen up, you fucking cucks. Here's your new game, throw everything else out. King of Persia. Boom. I'm like, it's actually a really good title. It's an interesting premise. What else have you got? That's it. You do the rest.
That's why you don't need to credit me. My work here is done. Throw like a smoke bomb down, I just disappear.
Alrighty. Well, Alfie, we need a Christmas and/or holiday character to discuss.
Interesting.
These are a bitch. In case you were wondering.
Well then, do you want to give me some time to get back to you on that?
No, I want you to do it right now. I demand. I am putting you on the fucking spot.
Alright.
Right this second.
Winter. Ba-ba-da-da-dum.
This is your bitch. It
I'm
is a bitch.
thinking. Oh, okay, yeah, this will count. You can't tell me this doesn't count. Because he inspired who your big Kris Kringle is. Can we do Odin?
Sure.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. All right. That was supposed to be harder, but good. All right. Everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Allfather.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.